I remember my first glimpse of Bing Crosby. Slightly more explicit when the goddess is named Sarasvati, the flowing one, said to be the wife, that is the Shakti, of both Brahma and Vishnu. Curiously, not Shiva. But that's another story. So the moon has both the dark and the light side. Wisdom on the one hand, the buddhi. Shiva is depicted with the crescent moon on his forehead. Shiva, Lord of the yogis. And old Lilith on the other. And evolution seems to involve some transmigration of the one level to the other. As a characteristic of the expanding universe. Anyway, what were you saying, Chrissy?
We were discussing at lunchtime whether we were talking about thought, and when thoughts come up, if you watch them, that they, so Krishnamurti would say, they diminish.
Yeah.
And so the feeling or the
Yeah.
thought goes. And the other suggestion was, well, is this accurate, or does watching the thought, being aware of it, feed it with more energy and sort of magnify it?
No. There are two approaches. It seems to me there is the approach I've known in a number of people who've become very attracted to the Jungian therapeutic process. And there's the other approach that one would call the Zen or Krishnamurti, or generally speaking, the yoga approach. The yoga approach would be wholly concerned with the negation of thought. And the negation of thought is realized by perception of the space between thoughts. It's interesting that someone like Van der Post, who was so knowledgeable about Japan, so involved with Japan and the Japanese, should have said he doesn't understand Zen. He, on the other hand, was fascinated by Jung. And to my mind, he gave completely the wrong advice to Prince Charles. This third program equivalent of the Desert Island Discs, where music is the main characteristic and is discussed in depth with a series of visitors to the program. what's it called, John?
Private passion.
Saying something simple.
No. Private passion.
Private passions, that's right. That's right. He said to Prince Charles, you know, I've sort of looked at that tortured face of Prince Charles more than once, and the advice he doesn't need is the advice given him by Van der Post, which was, remember, what was it? There are 10 million years of evolution behind you. Which seems to me to mean you carry with you the total burdens of the past. And all the Jungian folks that I've known, might have known up to 10 at various times, they do go on and on and on about understanding what happened here and what happened here. And you carry with you, it seems to me, by bringing the energy of awareness to it so often, a consolidation rather than a freedom from the baggage of past experience. Whereas the yoga approach, and most directly the Zen approach, is to cognize not thought, but the spaces between thought, which has its own energy. And the flow of thought consists of a sort of knot, block within that flow of energy.
You're talking about meditation, you're not just talking about being noticing, you're talking about meditation, which is not really what I'm supposed to be
Not
talking about.
quite. Not quite. Because the shunyata, it seems to me really, in the context of our time, the shunyata, a flow of no thing, no thought, no block. Coaxed, if you like, by a fixed meditation experience. This shunyata can arise at almost any time. Not exactly in any place, but in many odd occasions. Now, Krishnamurti talks about this. What phrase does he use, Chrissy? About something arising. It's in all the books. It's certainly in Pupuljayaka.
Not the other.
The other. That's it. The other. If and when that happens, it's always revelatory, it's always meaningful, it always has a purpose. long ago, I used to think, oh, yes, it has a meaning, it has a purpose, it's confirmatory, it's inspirational. But I later came to see not wholly that. And I later came to be a bit cautious about it. Because its purpose, its function, appeared to be protective as well. And was not infrequently followed by an experience one would rather be without. I noticed that many times. So while always welcome, this other, this no thought thing, can have a dual function.
But it isn't enough.
One of its subjective functions is dispelling fear. Sorry, Chrissy.
No, I'm on a different level altogether. I mean, I'm just talking about noticing that you
Yeah.
you have imbalances in your makeup.
Really?
I mean, one does, unless one is on a higher level of evolution, I suppose. But so merely noting it isn't enough. You've got to see the spaces between thoughts in order to eradicate them.
Seeing the thought, it seems to me, seeing the thought is not the most important thing. It's by awareness that one part of the perception cognizes the spaces between the thoughts, and the thought itself then subsides, diminishes, subsides. Its energy is drained at source. It appears that that does not totally eliminate what has occurred in the form of the thought and that from which it arises. It continues to exist as an impression in the samskaras. But it lacks, as Ramakrishna would have put it, the power to bind.
So until that perception arises, you're just stuck with it all, aren't you, basically, I suppose?
Is that a helpful attitude?
Well, is that thought watching thought? I mean, thought's quite cunning.
Thought, that's right, that's right. That's right.
Do you think that Krishnamurti's other is what he would also call the masters? Do you think that this is...
Well, read it for
human
yourself
beings
and
coming
you
down?
tell me what, because they questioned him about that, don't they? In Pupuljayaka particularly,
It's a-
and he denies it is the Bodhisattva. I seem to remember on one occasion he says the Buddha was here.
Which presumably would carry plenty of other in its...
I would imagine so.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. yes. The business of cognition, without the thought of I am cognizing, which, as you say, is thought listening to thought. The business of cognition without the cognizer. That was rather a Krishnamurti speciality, wasn't it? The watcher is not there. I personally think Buddhism arose as a theology because of the strenuous affirmation of the Upanishads on I am God. I am Atman. I'm God. Might be true, but you mustn't think it. That's the great paradox. You might be God, Elfin, but you mustn't think it. If you think it, you're not it. You're thought. Is that right, Pete? Thank you for your kind confirmation. They're all talking about the death of classical music, Elfie. What do you think about that? Or do you think we're just passing through a dark cycle? Smile.
Apparently, Classic FM has 6 million listeners, and it's rising all the time. That's according to their blurb.
Yeah. But concert attendances, someone was saying on television the other day, if it weren't for the foreign visitors in London, the concert halls would be empty. The indigenes don't want to know. And yet we've apparently opened up a grandiose new one. Have you been there, Alfred, to
Where?
Cadogan Hall?
Yes.
You've been there? What did you hear there?
I heard the Suzuki group playing there. Lots of
Oh,
children.
you heard Suzuki?
Yeah. Well, not Suzuki, but the children who learn Suzuki.
Oh, right. Sorry. But that's not the same Suzuki, is it?
It is the same Suzuki.
Well, there's the motorbike Suzuki. And various other mechanical developments, and there's the violin Suzuki, and there's this remarkable Japanese maestro who's recording the complete Bach cantatas. Have you heard him?
No.
Oh, ooh. Where did we hear him, John? Norwich, was it? Or was it Snape? Norwich.
Well, I heard him in Norwich, but I think you and Lizzie heard him repeat the same performance in London. At the...
Oh, that's right. It's at St John's.
Oh, St John.
Yeah. Extraordinary man. And of course there was Dr. D.T. Suzuki, who's written the standard works on Zen. So, what's the hall like?
Very good, I thought.
Acoustics, good? I haven't been yet. Isn't the ENO doing residence there? Did I hear that?
I'm not sure.
I don't mean ENO, do I? I remember years ago when I first saw the ENO advertised, my first thought was fruit salts. And of course that wasn't right, was it? Hello, Bevy. You all right, girl?
Yes, thank you. I think you've been hitting the nail on the head.
What you need? ENO. Yeah. ECO, that's what I'm thinking of. ECO, English Chamber Orchestra. Is that right?
I don't know.
Had them Thursday night. The principals have formed a string quartet. And a superb Mozart flute sonata with William Bennett. And there was also one of the top oboists, whose name eludes me at the moment, and a rather super young pianist doing the Trout Quintet, whose name also eludes me. It's getting old, you see. The brain cells are dying.
Can you remember the name that you said last week, the young baritone, was he Thomas somebody?
Ah, Quastov. Now,
Could you
that
spell that?
is something very special.
Could you spell it?
He's
Quas-
it's a remarkable intelligence incarnate in that shriveled body. Most extraordinary. Quastov. Quastov. Quast is all you need, remember. Quastov. German. Physiologically, the opposite to Hitler's Superman.
Hitler would have killed him, wouldn't he?
Sorry?
Hitler would have annihilated him. put
That's
him
right.
in the
That's exactly what I
hospital.
mean. Yeah. Yeah. get rid of the defectives.
So you would have killed Beethoven as well?
Yes, yes. One of the rishis was a hunchback, Ashtavakra, that's what the word means, the crooked one. And what about Helen Keller?
What does that mean then?
What does what mean?
The fact that the rishi was crooked. I mean, is it something to do with some unusual energy thing? There must be a hell of a symbolic meaning.
Well, before I could answer that, I'd have to read up on him a bit. Because apparently, as a consequence of his realizations, he became straight again. But you see, incarnation is always a sacrifice. It's a sacrifice which in the vast majority of people is autonomic. Can't help it. The law says, down you go, mate, and down you go. But there are some in whom it's very much more conscious, and those appear to be under the guidance of higher beings. And there are yet more who undertake, for the good of the world, to enter circumstances of great limitation, from which they awaken and work their way through as exemplars to the human race. But it's much more than merely being an example, because everything is energy, and the awakening of energy and the release of energy thus entailed is all part of the evolutionary impetus. It's all a contribution to the enlarging and the awakening of the phenomenon we call man. So there are those who undertake burdens and limitations, not only to work off their personal karma, but in order to give impetus to the evolutionary energy within their portion of civilization. Ashtavakra would be a preeminent example, I imagine. Oh God, it's time. Where does time go?